Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Rayto Meyer. This is Ian Neelewis, and this is the App Clinic. Today we're looking at transit apps.
Absolutely. You know, transit apps were one of the most popular categories suggested by viewers after we asked for suggestions. And I think it's because they're just so gosh darn useful.
They really are. I think that's the key to this. And we saw, we got a lot of different suggestions, and so we actually looked at quite a lot of them. And the key to it here is that they're really apps which people are going to use, which they use a lot of. And certainly when I was back in the UK in public transport, it's pretty much how I got everywhere.
But you wrote your own, right?
Well, of course I wrote my own.
Because, you had a couple hours free. I think everybody else was drinking that day, but
Possible.
you were in the back of the bar writing a transit app.
Well, no, this is the thing. If you spend an hour and a quarter every day on your commute, you have time to write apps.
That's an excellent point. Whereas I have no time to write apps because I'm sitting there on the 101 just...
Exactly. You're just as stationary,
thumbs,
but it's frowned upon to have your laptop open while you're driving your car.
I don't know why.
I don't know either.
We got to get that self-driving car thing going.
I think that's what Sergey was thinking, right? He's losing all of that time, so screw it. I'll build a car that drives for me.
That's right. And the Batmobile already had that built in.
Exactly.
So we're going to do something a little bit different today. Because we're reviewing transit apps and because they are so incredibly useful for someone on the go, we're actually not looking at the tablet versions of any of these apps, which we almost never do. One of the things that we really look for in most apps is a good, solid tablet layout. But we're not going to be checking that today because I think even on the phone, there's some things that we can say to almost all of these apps.
Absolutely. So let's have a look at the apps which we are going to investigate today. These are the ones. We're going to look at Offie, M-Parking, London Underground, Quick Muni, STM, and the London, or in fact now it is the UK bus checker. So these I think were all the most popular ones voted, except for the UK bus checker, which I threw in because I kind of like the app.
Oh, okay. See, I thought that we just had a huge over-representation in the UK.
That may be coincidence. It may have been rigged.
I see.
So let's kick off. Let's have a look at the first of the apps that we want to look at, which is Offie. And I think you've had a little bit of a look at this one, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's go ahead and take a look at. Is it Offie? Is it Uffie? I don't know.
No idea.
All right. So on my phone now, I have it running. Now the first thing it asked me to do actually was find stations. Now. We're here at our headquarters at number 8 Downing Street, London. So it's showing me, for instance, that I can go 157 meters to get to Horse Guards Parade,
which is where they had the beach volleyball. At the
indeed,
Olympics.
I would never go there. It's a sad place. 175 meters is going to take me to the Banqueting House. I can get to Whitehall, and 239 meters. Well, of course,
that's pretty close to 240 yards.
Thanks. I could throw a football an eighth of that distance. So yeah, and it's going to show me from each of those stops where I can get.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it's got some interesting filtering options. It does have a search, thank God. And notice that it is location aware.
Absolutely.
But of course, this is a relatively small print. The list view has the gradients behind it. I don't know why anyone does that. It looks cheap.
Yeah.
It's got some interesting things down here that I don't even know what.
I think there are disclaimers down along the bottom. You can just about see it on the screen there. I think it's errors and omissions accepted. So I think they're trying to get out of any liability for telling you the wrong time, just in case you miss your bus and feel inclined to sue someone for it.
So this is nice because if I, especially if I'm used to this transit system and I know the colors and the numbers, I can kind of scroll through and see. I could catch any one of these buses near me. I can also get directions from one point to another. So if I go here, and of course I want to go to, let's say, Piccadilly, because I know you're always hanging out in the Trocadero, just
they do have a Cinnabon
clubbing.
Map, so
They used to have a hookah bar that was amazing.
Wow.
Yeah, but apparently they let 16-year-old kids smoke there, so it was mostly lollipops and hookahs. And it seems to do a pretty good job of getting directions.
Sure.
I have no idea how long that's going to take.
The old style indeterminate update
Right.
progress bar.
Now, here's what I think is really interesting. When you
okay.
get directions, it gives you this view, which hopefully won't crash on me the way it did last time. But it'll show you the different things that you could take and the different times that it'll get you there.
Nice.
So I think that's kind of an interesting view. Now, once you get a route that has many options on it, this view gets really packed, and it's very difficult to use. But it's cool. Now, notice, of course, that they're not at all holo themed. They don't, they still have the old school menu button. Now, for those of you who watch the show frequently, you've probably heard us refer to this as the menu button of shame. This is the menu button of
Slightly less shame?
degradation. No, that's worse.
That would be worse.
Because at least it does something. Oh, except on this
but
screen.
not on this screen.
Yeah,
Here
so
it
let's,
is the
let's
shameful
back
menu
up.
button.
Yes, it was shameful there.
Here
it's all right
the
because
menu button of blushing? I'm not sure.
and
Hey guys, Engineer Daniel here. Ian, our viewers are having trouble seeing the device, so if you could just lower it back in the camera view, that would be great.
indeed. But you see, I was shaming them. Then I was shaming them here. Okay, I see.
Yeah.
Shame them.
But I have lovely hands, right?
No, your hands
Okay.
are great. You'd be a great hand model.
Right.
So this whole thing doesn't work out? Hand modeling.
That's oddly enough. That's what I was.
That was
And
always the
something
backup thing.
anyway.
Yeah.
Not necessarily modeling. Okay, so they do have the maps as well. I didn't find this to be nearly as interesting because it's not at all interactive.
It's not a real map. It's kind of old school scanning in a map rather than what we're used to.
But one thing that this does set this app apart is that it has got a lot of different networks available in it. And in fact, if you happen to go to a different city, you can actually, now I'm not sure how I would do it. I think I would go to preferences. Yeah, I go to transport network. And you can see they've actually covered a lot. They've got long distance railroads in Europe. They've got a bunch in the UK. They actually have San Francisco. And I will say that when I booted this up without my fake GPS this morning, it did give me San Francisco and San Jose.
Perfect.
And it was able to find the bus station closest to my house.
All right.
So
Nice. Okay.
let's go ahead and move on to
let's
the-
have a look at the next app which we're going to check out, and this is
now, just to
in
remind
parking.
frequent viewers that this is a little bit different. We felt like it might be more interesting to go over all the apps really quickly and then start talking about their deeper flaws.
Indeed.
So
Indeed. So we're going to go through, spend about 2 minutes on each of the apps that we're going to look at, check out what they do, as sort of a functional review, I suppose, with a little bit of commentary on how they've done those things. And then we're going to spend more time towards the end, comparing and contrasting, seeing what they did right, what they did wrong, and what we think would make sort of the ultimate transit app.
absolutely.
So all of the stuff that you're used to seeing will come just later. Hopefully that'll encourage people to stay and watch longer. But it could also mean that they get bored and sign off sooner. So please hang around. So,
Okay.
and parking.
We're getting less boring as I drink. So,
That is as viewers have come to
all
expect.
right. This is the one that I didn't look at, so I'm interested in seeing what.
Yeah, so this was an interesting one for me. Although I seem to have the wrong label up on the screen. So there we go. In parking, perfect. So it took me a little while to figure out exactly what this app did, which is probably my biggest complaint. I'm a big fan of having apps which, as soon as you load them up, it's pretty obvious what this does, how this is going to help you. So I kind of, based on the name, expected it to help me find where I parked or something similar. Turns out what it is, or what I think it is a way to automate the payment of parking. So where you have like SMS-based parking payment, this app will help you do that by automating the process for you, I think. Which is where it gets a little complicated. So this is basically the screen when you first start up, only this is empty. And so then you can go in, you click that, and what it lets you do is add your car registration and the country which it belongs to. So let's just pretend that that's a registration number. Country, now again, this was kind of confusing because I just put in USA. But the save button up here is still grayed out, and I can't do anything there.
We don't even like save buttons.
Well, indeed. So I thought, well, maybe it's just a legacy save button which does nothing, and if I hit back, but it hasn't actually saved what I've done, so that's confusing. So I go back in, and put my registration number, hit country again, and now if I slowly start typing United, then I get the list, and then once I've got something standard, then I can hit save. And it all works kind of how you'd expect.
Okay.
Only not really that intuitive. So it took me a little while to figure out that workflow. And so you can tick this, and then that's going to be the default or the currently selected car, effectively. So that's all fair enough. But then
I do like the size of those touch targets, by the way.
it is nice and big. That was my biggest point of happiness, I guess, using this app, is that everything is big. This could actually be bigger, but still, it's nice big targets that I can hit one-handed as I'm getting in and out of my car. So I do like that element to it. At that point, it all becomes a little bit more of a mystery. Like, okay, maybe I'm in Bulgaria.
Well, that certainly makes sense. I mean, you've got a U.S. license plate, and the most likely place you would be is Bulgaria.
Of course. So you would think, like chances are that I'm going to be in whichever country the license plate is for. But, I guess if you're in Europe, you could be traveling, so that all makes sense. So, okay, now I've selected the city that I'm in, but again, location awareness would have been nice here. You know what city I'm in, just check, and that should all be available.
All right, we'll have time. We'll have time to rip on it.
You're right. Okay, so then, eventually, you hit this, and you get... Oh, I have to do it again. I hit it with my hand. Error, no service.
I love that because it's almost a toast. It's not. It's a custom toast.
It's a custom toast, yeah. So, again, I presume that at this point is when it would have sent the message to the appropriate service to pay for parking in the blue zone. And the only way I was sort of able to figure this out was by going into settings, and you can see send SMS internally. I'm going to turn that off. Localization, themes, payment sent notification. So just sort of through intuition I was able to figure out, okay, so this works. So it's an interesting app. If it actually works in the countries where the parking is, then I think that might be useful. But let's move on. Let's move on to Quick Muni. Yeah, I think you had a look at Quick Muni.
Oh, well, actually, can't I just do the London ones because I'm already in London?
Oh, that's true. That's true. I wouldn't stop you.
All right, let's do the.
But you're the Bay Area native. And by native, I mean you've lived here longer than me.
Yeah, but I live in San Jose, which...
I guess I live slightly closer.
Exactly, and actually living in San Jose is further away from San Francisco than really any other major metropolitan area. Mostly because it takes longer to drive there from San Jose than it does to fly there from pretty much anywhere else in the world.
You might be right.
And also because San Jose is that uncool.
Wow. Don't talk down where you live, man. San Jose's nice.
Yeah, whatever.
The Australia store is in San Jose. That's where I get my
that's
Vegemite and
true.
Tim Tams from.
That's right. If I ever need a musk-flavored piece of licorice, I know exactly where to go.
So wait, so you are going to look at the London Underground rather than the Muni?
Oh, yeah, the San Francisco Muni, sure. But I get the London Underground later. All right. So Quick Muni is... So one of the things that's really confusing about San Francisco, by the way, is it has like 3 different municipal transport things, and they sort of interact, and I mean, it's not as confusing as Tokyo, but it's still kind of confusing. So Muni is the one that I never take because it seems completely useless. But maybe it's just because I always go somewhere else.
Okay. So where does Muni take you? Is Muni the Underground, or is Muni
No, I think Muni's like the
trams?
The trams, like they go down the Embarcadero.
Gotcha.
And see, I would take them down the Embarcadero, but they're always completely full. This isn't going to tell me if it's completely full, but it will tell me where. Now it's showing me nearby, which was as close to me as I was this morning when I booted the app.
Makes sense. Seems to be a little stuck there. So
it does. I'm
pretty
actually kind of wondering if I should take this off of Wi-Fi. But yeah, so it'll show me which stops are near me, and then it'll show me what the route is for that stop. And I am going to turn off Wi-Fi because I think our Google Wi-Fi here is just getting really crowded. There we go. Okay. So it'll show me the route. It doesn't appear to be showing me.
Doesn't really give me any information here.
Yeah,
I don't know what the 56 must be the number of the tram.
Well, it certainly I mean, it certainly tells me that if I go to this stop, I can.
Oh, so that's the stop number. So if I go to stop 56, then I can get the 1242 or 72. Oh, okay.
Well, that's what I was wondering. The other way you could interpret this is that I can catch the 56 at Executive Park and I would be able to transfer to these 3 lines. I'm not really certain. I think
possible.
I agree with you more, except it doesn't seem like 56 could possibly be the stock number, right? Or maybe these. Well, okay, so maybe these are.
I think it is. I think 56 is the stop.
Right. Okay, so there's just multiple different routes coming off of that.
Yes.
I see. Okay. And the fact that we had to figure that out is.
Again, not
it
a
probably
great
just
sign,
means
right?
that we're not natives, right?
True. And I guess that's one of the challenges when you're creating a transit app like this, is that you've really got 2 audiences. You've got people who live there and are going to use this every day, and they really just want to see really quickly, things which change. So when is the next bus, tram, whatever going to arrive? I don't need to know about the stops, I just need to know how to get to a particular place. And your other audience is visitors, people who aren't using it that often and need to figure out how to get somewhere, and which coloured bus they need to get on to make that happen.
Now so I had nearby, I have favorites, that makes sense, and then I have lookup. Now the truth is, I don't know why this is called lookup, but it does seem to be something where I can find out
This
when
is
things
actually
are
the
going
most
to
useful.
arrive, right?
So I think it works by being able to go in and basically do specific things. So I'm going to get the 10 to Townsend in the outbound direction and at the Kansas Street stop, and it'll tell me when the next buses or trams, I suppose, are going to arrive. So that's
Okay.
actually what I would
That
consider
is
to be the
very
most
useful,
useful,
and I
particularly
can-
for a native.
Okay,
you
and
can
since
star
I can, I can star that. I think that stars the stop, though. I'm not sure that actually stars.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to be starring anything, to be honest.
No.
Oh,
Oh,
it
there
is.
we go. Okay, and that lets me know. All right, so I can. Yeah, I guess what I'm looking for here is just. I mean, we can talk about this more later, but I think that this is a nice, clean layout. It's just not completely clear how I'm going to use this.
Exactly. It's one of those things which I think a lot of people, I mentioned there's sort of 2 main use cases, and this is an app which falls in between those, where they're saying, here is all of the data we have. And you can almost see the APIs living behind this UI. It's like, we have an API which lets you specify a line, direction, and a stop, and it'll tell you when the next one comes. So that's a screen.
Exactly.
We have an API which tells you where each of the stops are and which lines stop there, and so that's a screen. And that's kind of the wrong way to build a UI. You really want to think more about what is the information that you want to present users and come up with that.
Sure.
All right, let's move on quickly because I think we're a little bit behind. So I'm going to have a look at the London Underground. So this is a nice, simple app, which is handy for traveling on the London Underground. So I've already been using it, so we'll go back to the main screen if I can. So this is an interesting challenge. So you saw straight away that clicking on the home button didn't take me to home, it just left me where it was. And that's a little bit confusing. I always expect that if this is a touch target, it should take me back to whatever home is.
Right.
And in fact, that's probably the biggest...
Or maybe this is home.
Well, this is, but this wasn't where I was. So if I go to, let's see, info, map information, map locations. Can't even remember how I got to where I was before. We'll figure it out. But see, if I click here, it's not taking me anywhere. It's just leaving me right where I am.
So it looks like an up affordance, but it's totally not.
Well, it looks like a home screen button.
Yeah,
like a
absolutely.
shortcut to home.
It's even a touch target.
It's even exactly. If it wasn't a touch target,
Sorry.
sure. So navigation is the biggest problem I had with this app. Sort of figuring out it's actually really functional, but it's not obvious how to get everywhere. So the main thing that you have here is that it is a map of the London Underground.
So London Underground is my favorite subway system.
Is that right?
It absolutely is. It's
You clearly haven't ever lived in London.
indeed. No, I have, and you know what? I've driven in London, which makes me appreciate the Underground even more.
That's fair. That is fair. So you can see. So you can basically go through and see the map, the famous London Underground map. Works with your expected map ability to just scroll and zoom in and zoom out using gesture support and all those sorts of things. You can add GPS, which isn't going to work very well here. But again,
let's try it on my phone.
Well, you've got the fake GPS.
Yeah, indeed. Of course, I put my fake GPS in London today because obviously this whole list was rigged. So if I say locate, I should be able to...
It should take you somewhere.
Yeah.
There you go.
There we are.
There you are, we're at Westminster Station. So now the only thing I'd say there is that you've kind of got an extra step there. It's like we've already said we want to, and this shouldn't say GPS because GPS just means Global Positioning System is kind of meaningless. It should say locate me. And then there shouldn't be this two-step process. It should just take
really,
you
I would prefer that to be an action on the action bar. It's such an obvious thing.
It seems like the first thing you're going to want to do is go, where in God's name am I? And then you can go here, you can click on this and it'll tell you how to get to or from there from other places. View on internet map, minute map from here.
The minute map is cool. I like the minute map.
Yeah.
I mean, it's completely useless, really.
Oh, and it's lies. It's total lies.
Yeah. but what I love about this is that I could be a tourist in London and just say, well, I've got half an hour to spare. What incredibly famous station can I go to today?
Exactly. And if you think you can get from Westminster to Wimbledon in 32 minutes during peak hour, then I have a bridge to sell you.
But
this one may be located in New York. Right now? No. Probably
there
now
you go.
It would probably work. So that's quite nice. And you can go through and you can do a bunch of other things as well. So if you hit the I button, again, not the most intuitive, but what this is going to do is take you to an iPhone app which tells you what the service is like on each of the lines.
An iPhone app, I see. Yeah.
It certainly doesn't look like an Android app.
Yeah, that's a pretty well done imitation, isn't it?
Exactly. So this is actually really useful if you do use the London Underground. Knowing which lines are in and out of service is kind of vital, and the departure boards as well is nice. It's a shame that it's having to load all the information every time. It would be kind of nice if it could just prefetch that.
You'd think a lot of that could be cached.
Absolutely.
And this actually, well, let's talk about this in a second.
Exactly. So that's basically what it does. Shows you the London Underground map and tells you what the service is like on each of the lines and when each of the trains is going to arrive. So pretty useful stuff.
Yes.
Next on our agenda, I think we had STM. Now this was asked to be reviewed by someone who I think has used it in anger, and it has made them angry.
Ouch. Yeah. I all right. I'll tell you what. I'll do STM, but you got to let me do bus checker too.
Okay. All right. That's fair.
Okay. So STM. Is the Montreal Transit app. It's I don't think it's quite as bad as some of these, honestly. But it starts out with, well, at least it's got the tabs on the top. It'll show you where your bus and your metro go. It has favorites. It does have a trip planner, so I think now kind of want to. That's interesting. So yeah, this will. Kind of a non-standard icon there. It's just a person.
Yeah, I wouldn't have guessed that the person was...
almost looks like the Google Street View icon.
Yeah, so it's the Pegman. It's almost the Pegman.
Right, but then we'll just say, I don't know, Montreal. And then just, oh, nice. Well, that doesn't work. Okay. Let's see what it does with that.
So you haven't actually selected your arrival point. There we go. Oh, confused.
Oh, I'm sorry. I cannot get us from London to Montreal.
That's a shame.
But you would assume that it can do. You know, let's just assume that it can.
If it was London, Ontario, maybe.
Yeah. Oh, there you go. And then it's just got some general information. Now this is that's interesting. Do you see that little scrolling?
The little marquee.
Yeah,
Sweet.
Indeed.
Where's the blink text?
That probably took a long time for some. You know, it kind of reminds me of that old routine about the woman in the Snickers commercial. Remember the hunger's poking at you.
I haven't been in this country long enough.
Paula Poundstone said, however stupid you think that commercial is, somebody sat down and wrote that on a piece of paper. And that's the way I feel about some of these.
Yeah, it's like so much effort for something.
We're talking about like a week of work. You like mark that. You might have gotten a bonus for that from your boss, and all it does is kind of piss people off.
Yeah.
Well, this one doesn't piss me off very much. In fact, it doesn't piss me off at all. But it probably wasn't necessary. It would have been nicer, probably,
just to have the text.
Yeah. You could have.
Or in fact, I think our guidance is to pick one, right? For tabs, you should either have an image or have text, not have both. So,
right.
Yeah, maybe a little overkill.
Of course, this is Canada. God knows there may be some law
that it requires. Well, that's true, but I would have thought it would be language-based rather than glyph-based.
Maybe it says you can't abbreviate information to info because I don't know. All right. Anyway, but the info is kind of boring. It's just a bunch of web pages. So I think really the only thing that's good about this is the trip planner.
The trip planner. Yeah, that's usually the key thing for something like this.
And then of course you've got the sort of an interesting menu.
It's got colors. It's got an exit button.
Yeah, we would be super excited about people getting rid of these menus completely because we're embarrassed about them and we want them to go away.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is
not great.
It feels like maybe it was developed on some random different phone that had a completely non-standard color scheme, or
I don't know. I think that's their color scheme. It looks like that's an attempt at branding, which is fine. We like branding. We like to have apps which look unique, which have their own distinct look and feel. But this, I think, is going a little bit too far.
it's a little weird.
Quite a lot too far. All right, we're running a little bit out of time, so let's
take a
move
look at
straight on to the
Bus
bus checker and go from there.
Okay, so Bus Checker is fun. All right, so Bus Checker has some of the buttons that I would kind of expect. Of course, they're located on a split action bar, and the action bar has to be split because, as you can see, I think this is actually a standard action bar, but the logo here is just so incredibly
it
wide.
shouldn't be a logo at all, in fact. Well, I guess it could be, but it's a little bit odd having so that really wide logo and then having the navigation stuff on there.
Nobody minds that on a tablet. Here, it looks a little weird.
I'd be inclined as well. They have a pretty distinctive logo as well. I'd be
Right.
kind of tempted to just stick with the logo approach, which is another approach, and particularly if it gives you the ability to use the up affordance and those sorts of navigation cues, which the logo
Exactly.
doesn't. So.
Yeah, so yeah, what we'd love to have is just the icon here with the up affordance, and then it would basically be icon followed by the word map,
Yeah.
and then you can navigate. So map, list, that makes a certain amount of sense, although this doesn't actually when I go to list.
Yeah, so it's an
why.
interesting point. You have to have zoomed in closely enough for it to have found a selection of bus stops before it will show them
Right.
to you in a list.
Now it does have locate
Oh,
action
excellent.
on the action bar, so that
like
makes
that.
sense.
So they've used a color here to indicate that that's being used. We don't use colors on the action bar, so that's probably something that they want to avoid.
Right.
But there you go. So now you can see all of the bus stops. So
Yeah.
that's quite handy.
I think actually knowing that that's been used is a relatively useless piece of information.
Yeah, you can see that because you can see it on the screen.
Exactly. Yeah, so it'll show me everything that's nearby. It'll show me that on the map. It will let me search.
Not using the standard search affordance, which is a bit of a shame, particularly
that
as
is too bad.
it doesn't look like there's anything extra that you can do from there that you wouldn't be able to do from an in-action bar search.
No, well, there is this text here that I could read if I wasn't so terribly old.
True, it's very small text, but again, that's the sort of thing you can put in the hint text itself on the search bar.
Right. So, we'll go to let's go to Wimbledon, as you were saying before. So that's the advantage. Oh my goodness, that is the tiniest.
Very small. That's
Wow.
not 48 pixels.
That is, yeah.
Anyway, go to Wimbledon Village.
Oh, okay. Oh, I think I went to the substation. Oh, is that just terrible?
No, you
do
don't
not
want to go to the
substation
substation part of town.
Certainly.
So what has that done?
I have no idea what it's done, actually. Perhaps it's highlighted
I think
something
we're locked
else?
to our current location at the moment.
Oh, so I would have to maybe
So I think maybe I
press
have to
this again?
Turn that off. Yeah, that
And
seems
then
like
I
it's
could
turned off.
search?
Yeah.
Okay.
Give that a try.
And once again, Wimbledon, chosen mostly because the autocomplete will pick it up. And this
So-
time I'll go to the village
Yeah.
because...
And so that's interesting. So they've done their own autocomplete, which is again something you can get for free if they just use the standard search.
Right. No.
It's not taking you to Wimbledon.
No, it's not. But then apparently neither does the London Underground, as you were saying, so...
It'll get you there, just not quickly.
Uh,
All right. So what else can you do? Let's.
well, here's
now this is
my
the-
favorite
the
thing.
useful bit,
I,
yeah.
I love this. It's basically, it is the interactive version of the sign that you find next to every stop in most metropolitan areas,
Absolutely.
right? So it's going to, it's going to tell me when will these, where does this bus go? When will it arrive? This is my favorite thing.
Yeah,
you
you
get a
can
little
drag
bus
the
down there.
bus
Yeah,
along.
drag
That's
the
kinda
bus,
cool.
and you can.
Follow the route.
Yeah, let me let it catch up here, and then I can. It's these, by the way, these shouldn't reflect on the app. Our network in the Android building is incredibly unreliable because we have a million phones in this building, and they're all doing all the wrong things.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's have a look. So if we
Yeah.
actually click on one of these, this is so again. This is kind of non-standard. That touch target is really, really hard to press. But this is kind of my favorite bit, and I think this is what you
Yeah.
were getting at before, where this is what you see at each bus stop, and here it's telling me exactly when each of the buses is going to come along. So some of the fancier, newer bus stops in London actually have this information displayed. on the board. But having it in the palm of my hand so that I know whether or not I need to run for a bus, although I do have a policy of never running for public transport. Because you don't want to be that guy running after the bus. Stop, because they will never stop. True story.
They stop for me all the time.
Nice. I'll have to learn your secret.
All right,
So it's quite nice, right?
Yeah. It's I really like this screen a lot. It's very cool. It's
I'd like to see this more prominent. It's kind of hard to get to, and one of the things that I think we're just about ready to sort of talk about the prescriptions for what makes for a great app. And in fact, I'm going to pop that up on screen now. So one of the things which I think is really important is that it has to be usable at a glance, and not just usable as in being able to see the information, but also being able to hit things while you're walking down the street, while you're sort of hurrying for your bus. You want to be able to get to those sorts of things really easily.
Yeah. All right, so, I thought we were going to be full screen, but we're not. We're up there in the corner. Hello. Right.
Boom.
All right. Yeah, so this is, you want the most important things to be right there, absolutely. And I think you're right, with the London bus thing, it's a beautiful screen, it's really useful, but it's not right there.
Yeah.
Why don't we go ahead and go through the prescriptions?
Shall we put them all up? All right.
Yeah. All right, so first, I think it's always going to be design guide compliance. We want all apps to comply with our design guidelines. And to be specific, what we want to see is consistency. So I don't think that we've ever said that you can't have your own UI, but if you go off in your own direction, if you invent your own stuff, at least don't duplicate the sorts of things that we've got. Oh, that's the magic button. Excellent. Okay, yeah. See, I should have known better than to screw with your system.
Don't mess with the system.
I reached over here,
and
it was
get
just like
in the camera.
It was just like the dude at the club that's like, "Hey, DJ, I can scratch better than you now."
Yeah, no, you can't.
I'm that guy. I'm sorry.
It's all right. You'll learn.
All right.
It's a learning
Indeed.
experience.
Well, anyway, so the point is that you don't want to conflict with the design guide.
Exactly.
So if you go in your own direction, that's fine.
Totally. And some of these apps, like things like mParking, is something which can have a pretty unique look because you want to have the big piece of information big and prominent.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, if you've got an app that just has a big red button, then that might be exactly what you need if your app is the big red button.
It's really just about trying to reduce the learning curve for a new user who opens your app so that they can figure it out without having to figure it out.
Now, the mistake that a lot of people make, and this is what we won't tolerate, is the using your own UI, but actually it's a UI that someone in Cupertino designed. And we see that a lot with, for instance, large agencies that are doing a lot of cross-platform development. Someone at the top, somebody's boss who just carries the newest hipster phone, will come down and say, "Hey, this isn't the kind of UI I'm expecting. Round some of those corners. Let's get that tweed background going." And that's not okay from our point of view because it's not consistent with the other applications on the Android device. Remember, you're not designing an app to please people who carry an iPhone. They're not going to see your Android app unless someone shows it to them while they're standing in line for the new iPhone, right?
Yeah,
what you want is to please Android users, and Android users know what Android phones are capable of and what Android apps generally look like. And if nothing else, they're used to using the Gmail app and the Maps app and all the other Google apps. So in the absence of other direction, that's what you should imitate, is the Google apps.
Absolutely.
But if you want to go in your own direction, that's fine. Just don't conflict. Don't make something that looks like an action bar,
but isn't really an action bar.
All right. So the next one is location aware.
Exactly. So all of these apps are based around being able to catch public transport somewhere near where you are. And so having them know where you are without having to type it in yourself is kind of a no-brainer. I think most of the apps we looked at today do this pretty well, which is good. So the real trick here is keeping track of your location and doing so in a way that isn't going to drain the battery. So having the exact, precise location is not particularly important to keep track of. I think really it's the sort of thing where you open the app once, get your current location, and that should be enough for most people.
Right. Yeah. So a really good example of this is the Google Now application. So you can see that when I bring up Google Now, in my putative location in London, first it's going to tell me the time-sensitive information that I need to know.
You need to be ready for that.
Friday Games Review is, yes, that's coming right up. It's going to give me the weather. It realizes that I'm out of town. So it's like, oh, you might want to know some exchange rates.
Exactly how worthless your US dollar is.
Exactly. And I don't know, actually.
It's actually giving you...
much better than it used to be.
Wow.
And then, some restaurant
places you may want to go nearby.
Yeah, and if I had it set up correctly, it would actually show me the nearest transit stops and when things are coming up. So
this is the kind of model you want to shoot for. It knows your location, it's giving you the relevant information, it's not asking you to confirm, it's not asking you to lock it on or keeping the GPS running permanently.
Right. The real point here is you could make a circa 1985 web app. You could, circa 1995
maybe, web app would be quite an app.
Yeah. And
no one would be able to look at it, but it'd be cool.
That would be amazing. Yeah.
You could have a 1985 Gopher terminal.
You're just mean. Point is, you could make a simple app. You could make an app that's obviously an app where people have to say, I want you to do this, Mr. Computer. Or, with all of the computing power that you have in a device like this, with all of the sensors and all of the information that you have, you could make something that feels so magical.
Exactly. It's that feeling of magic. It's something we're going to go on about week after week. It's really make it obvious, make it easy, make someone open it up and go, oh wow, cool, this tells me when my next bus is going to arrive. And it seems to know where I am and which bus I want to take. That's kind of a magical experience.
Exactly.
The next two are kind of go together, sort of task-oriented and being usable at a glance. And I think you mentioned this to me earlier when we were discussing these apps. And it's really about thinking about when and how people are going to be using apps like this.
Yeah. I was saying that, when I'm using a transit app, I'm usually on the go. I'm usually walking. It's very frequently cold. Often I have gloves on.
Yeah. No stranger to that.
I may not have the ability to read small text. I almost certainly don't have the ability to tap small touch targets. So I want something that's very usable without having to parse a lot of information or touch a lot of small stuff.
Absolutely. You should have the right information should be there straight away, and navigation should be really simple. Big touch targets, as little navigation as possible. Being able to hit one button, like hit the home button, and instantly be taken to what is most likely the most useful information.
And that's really the key about being task-oriented is what is the most useful thing for me to see or do right now? And if you can't figure out what it is, it's fine to offer a few
absolutely
different ideas, but make everything circled around tasks. Every now and then I might think to myself, oh, it'd be fun to just browse the London bus schedule so that I can imagine my future life as a homeless person in London. But in general, what I want is to find when the next bus is, or I want to find how to get from one point to another. I have these tasks that this application can help me with, and if it's not obvious how to achieve those tasks right away, then I've got a lot larger mental load. I have to find what's the closest station to me, and then I have to think to myself, well, where do I need to go, and what's my time frame, and I have to do all of this work that the computer could be doing for me.
It's important to note as well that these problems have existed for a long time, so there's actually a fair amount of infrastructure in place to solve this problem with ways other than using your phone. So as soon as a user is going, it would be easier to ask someone sitting next to me when the next bus is coming, or get up and walk around to see what the sign says, or try and decipher the map on the podium, whatever. You want to create something which is easier for users than what is already there for them, and that's not nothing.
Well, and don't forget that unless you're in Seoul, Google Maps will actually do a better job of this than many of the commercial applications. So if you can't beat that interface, then your competitiveness is in question.
Absolutely, and I think that's a lot of what the benefit of a lot of these apps bring is information which you can't currently get on Google Maps. So things like how long until the next bus arrives. I don't think Google Maps offers that, certainly not in all locations. So that's a competitive advantage, and that's kind of what you should be making as your primary front page task. What else have we got? So efficient background updates. Again, this is kind of an obvious one, but one where you don't want to have to wait for the app to update every time you load it up.
It's obvious, but it's really difficult to get right, and a lot of people don't do it right. In general, if you pop up a dialog that says updating, you're doing it wrong. If you block your user from doing something because you're updating, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
Unless you have a fully transactional system where the atomicity of transactions is imperative, which you don't, because nobody does that on a phone,
If
then
you're doing that, you're doing it wrong.
it's safer to just let your user know that updates are occurring, and it might be very, very useful to give some idea of which data that you're displaying is out of date, or which data is being currently updated or about to be updated, so that your user can make a decision based on that information. But in general, if I see that the bus that I'm waiting for, that I expect to come in 20 minutes, hasn't had an update for 5 minutes, pausing the entire program to get that update is not useful.
No.
Knowing that that information is a couple minutes out of date is useful, but not the most important thing. The most important thing is to just keep the UI responsive, because as soon as you can't do something, you get frustrated. And if you can't do something for a stupid reason, you get really frustrated. And that's when I start uninstalling things.
Precisely. Last thing we want to mention is a widget. This seemed obvious to me.
Right?
Like for anything where you're trying to keep track of when the next something is, having a really easy, quick way on the home screen. So then, what is the workflow? It's hit the home screen button, the home button, and there it is. That kind of seems like a no-brainer.
Absolutely.
So let's have a look. So we have actually spent far more time talking about stuff than we necessarily should have. But what we want to do now is spend a couple of minutes looking at each of these sort of details in reference to the app. So we should kind of breeze through these in just a couple of minutes. So maybe one or two examples, right?
Recap, yeah. So
Why don't you fire that up? So the first one is design guide compliance. And so for those of you watching, the place to go to find the right way to do all of this is at developer.android.com/design. It's on the bottom of the screen. And let's have a look. So do you want to show maybe the best example and maybe the worst example? And
well, if I remember right, wasn't the best example the
bus checker is pretty close.
Yeah,
it uses a standard action bar.
I probably would have gone with light instead of dark. You've got the light map. But,
indeed. And in fact, this is pretty good guidance and something which Roman has mentioned to us in the past, which is if you're creating something immersive, something like video content where people are supposed to be just looking at the content there and not being distracted by anything, that's the right time to use dark, which is why I think YouTube uses the dark theme. For everything else, light is kind of a better approach.
Right.
So I think that would be a good way to go here.
Yeah, especially when most of your UI is light. It's very jarring to have both types of UI. If you've got a night mode, for instance, I think going dark is fine. So I think really the only thing they did wrong on this screen is they should take out the bus checker and just
rely
keep
on the
the
logo.
icon.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the icon's fine.
And similarly, I think overall their navigation is a little bit funny. Even the things on the action bar, as long as they all mean specific actions, that's fine. I'd make sure that the search button, is an action bar search. Touch targets in generally tend to be a little small. Particularly on the map view.
Right.
The dialogue which comes up on the map view is a little hard to pick.
I want to mention specifically, this list is beautiful. This is exactly what we're talking about when we're talking about UI that's unique, but it doesn't conflict with our guidelines, right? Our guidelines are generally flat. We don't like gradients in lists. Why don't we like gradients in lists? Well, first off, because it's sort of the trademark of different operating systems. But second, because honestly, if you just slap the same gradient down on every list item, it looks cheap.
It does.
It really, it's been overdone.
Well, that's the thing. It was kind of overdone in the demo scene back in the early 90s.
Exactly.
That's a long time ago.
It's the everybody have fun tonight of
Absolutely.
Graphics. But you can see what they've done here is a beautiful, bicolored list plus this little thing which
really nice
means nothing, but
totally
it looks
meaningless,
awesome.
But it adds a context to it, which just looks
Absolutely,
nice.
yeah. And then touch target over here. Now the value of having this as a touch target versus just a touch on the entire thing is a little unclear to me.
Yeah, I would probably lose that. Given that it seems to be doing the same thing, it looks like they've gone, Roman will hate on us if we have a right chevron, so we'll replace it with something else.
Right.
The actual solution is to replace it with nothing.
Right. The reason that we hate on right chevrons isn't because, there's a lot of reasons, but the main reason is that list items in Android are supposed to always do something when you tap on them, so you shouldn't have to have an extra hint.
Yeah. But this is a beautiful display and a really good example of what we were talking about earlier, about being able to build something which is really custom. There is nothing in Android that's quite like this visual representation of a bus stop sign. Even with the little London in the background, it's cute, it's nice, very
It's
visual.
effective, because although it is probably not as absolutely fast as having less stuff
You
here,
could just have a list with each
It's-
of the points, but it's not as fun, and people are used to this, right?
Right.
There is already an infrastructure in place so that people
exactly.
know what to look for.
It brings in the metaphor so that I know exactly if there was just a grid of numbers here. Not only would it be boring, it would be confusing. I'd be asking myself, what are these things?
Exactly.
But here,
Are they
I
the
know
route? Are they the
exactly.
stop? What is it?
Yeah.
Well, we know this already.
I know exactly what's going on here.
So this is great. So
I love it.
this is really nice.
And they've used the favorites icon.
Perfect.
So that I can save favorites. That's great. It's perfect. You'll notice down here. See, it's refreshing in 9 seconds.
Exactly. This is a really nice
Perfect.
tip here. So it tells you exactly how fresh the data is, how often it's going to be, and I presume we're going to be able to change that in the settings as well. Okay, so we're gonna have to speed up a little bit here. We're not going to spend any more time on design because, in fact, Roman and the other guys from New York and London, the design capitals of the world.
Well, we can at least say
We're
what
gonna spend a
was
little
the
more
worst
time.
one design-wise.
Probably STM. I think in terms of design, I think that had a lot of flaws. Just didn't look like an Android app at all.
And just things like the scrolling thing. I think
just
it
not quite
could have
right.
used a little more thought. Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Location awareness. Again, we won't go into too much detail. I think most of these apps did this reasonably well. I think they could have done a better job at perhaps. Guessing some of the
M-Parking didn't have
context.
any location awareness,
No.
and it was really obvious because, here's my tag plate. I'm in the USA. Oh, now you want me to park in Sofia?
Yeah.
Right. I mean,
Not
I don't want to have to scroll down to see what the most important stuff
So
is.
be a little more intelligent, and basically that's what it should be doing here: is popping up the screen saying, "This is where I think you are. This is the zone I think you're in," or indeed, "You're not in anywhere which we support payment." Something to help us out. Best way
And
to
by the way, they also lose points based on
the gradient.
the gradients
Yeah.
and all sorts of other things. Yeah.
Exactly. So we've got a little URL again at the bottom of the screen, and this is some of the location awareness best practices. So it's a blog post that we put out, I think, about a year ago now, which basically explains how you can find the current location, keep location updates, while minimizing your use of GPS and the inherent battery impact that has. Let's see. So the other two we had task orientation and usable at a glance. I think this is kind of where all the apps fall down a little bit. M-Parking's not bad in that it's, if you figure out what it's for, then it's
If you need it, you need it.
but the rest, they kind of fall into this, I've got a giant list, and you click on the list and there's like so much information that they really, this is all good stuff to have, but you really want to break that down into what are the specific tasks that I'm looking for. Is it, make a decision for your app. What is the most useful thing?
Right.
Is it knowing when the next bus is? Is it a trip planner? Is it a map? Figure out what the most useful thing that your app does and focus your UI and your user experience around that one particular task.
And make it big. Make it really obvious.
Really big, yeah.
In fact, this is the thing. We've moved away from dashboard style UIs, but I think that if you've got something where it's supposed to be usable by someone in a hurry, and there's 2 different tasks you could use it for, I wouldn't say no to having some big buttons on the home screen.
Yeah.
But the important thing is just to make sure that it's
Or a
consistent.
view pager, even.
View
It's
pager would be perfect,
One
yeah.
thing is based on your current location, this is the buses, this is when they're leaving, you swipe across and there's a trip planner, you swipe across and it tells you what the various routes are in that location.
Right.
Something like that.
So I think the loser here is going to be Quick Muni, because even though they use a view pager, which is great, I feel like it's a little bit ineffective. I mean, we've got nearby, we've got favorites, that's fine. So I want to know where bus stops are. But then
That's
this
the key, right? Give me this information right up front. This is where you are. This is where we know you live or work based on your current transits. Tell me how long until my bus gets here.
Right, exactly. And I was shocked to find no location awareness at all. I mean, it seems like the first thing I would want in a lookup is current location.
Current location, absolutely.
And this is not current location. It's just it's a front end onto somebody's web service.
That's right. This is totally web service driven development, or web service driven design, which is not kind of the right way to go. Background updates, we will probably have to use these apps a little bit longer, but again, most of them seem like they are doing updates in real time based on where I'm navigating to. That's not a bad approach, but if you have a look at the website that I've linked here, it'll tell you, or this is actually an Android training class, which will tell you some techniques that you can use to try and keep that information a little bit fresher without having too much of an impact on your battery life.
Yeah. Now, Bus Checker, I think, was
Checker's the winner on
really,
that one.
really well done. Some of the others were popping up toasts, they were popping up modal dialogues, they were doing all sorts of things to take me away from the application in order to let me know that they were updating when I didn't care about that at all.
Just have it happen, make sure that the data is fresh and useful for me, and give me an ability to do a refresh if I want to check, more often than usual. We talked about widgets, so there are two apps which have widgets. Bring this phone up. Oops, I just killed something. So that is Bus Checker again. So Bus Checker's doing a pretty good job here, and this is, I think, Auphy. Yes, Auphy was the other one which had a widget. This is, again, the problem with these widgets again is that they're a little bit busy, a lot of text in a small amount of space, hard to glance at when I'm walking along. So
Bus Checker actually really surprises me because compared to their app, this widget is ugly.
Exactly. The
app was much more nicely designed.
That's right. So I'd think about using some of those custom graphics that they have, to really spruce up the widget, make it more noticeable and easy to use.
Yep.
So
we're just about out of time.
So I'm going to buzz through these things before engineer Dan comes over and throttles us both. So we've got basically each of the apps. So Auphy gets a couple of ticks for the widget and location awareness. mParking is location aware, reasonably usable at a glance, which is nice. Quick Muni, pretty good in terms of the design compliance, view pager, action bar, and location awareness. But not as much location awareness as we could have liked.
Wait a second, Quick Muni wasn't location aware at all. Who made these slides?
I don't know, we need to get better help. London Underground, again, reasonably good. And you can see, but all of these apps have done a couple of things right, but not too many. And I think STM is the clear loser. It's location aware, and that's about all you can say for it. And the winner, I think, is probably the UK Bus Checker. Location awareness, efficient background updates, a simple widget, kind of does the job the way we would like to see it done.
All right.
So, if we can get us on the big screen, we'll say goodbye to everyone. Give the Friday Games Review a chance to get in here and get started.
So join us at 2:05 p.m. for Friday Games Review.
We may be running a little bit late. Also coming up on Tuesday, Roman, Adam, and Nick from our New York and London offices are going to be doing Android design in action. They're going to take a look at 3 of the apps which we reviewed today and basically give them a UI UX overhaul and show you the way they think that these apps should look if they want it to be really awesome.
Now, if you know these guys are incredible designers. That's why they live in New York and London.
That's right. They couldn't stand it here.
And they have they promised to take at least one of these apps and do a full makeover. So it will be your home app makeover show.
Absolutely. So that's Tuesday at 10:30 a.m. New York time, 3:30 p.m. London time, which is 7:30 a.m. here in Mountain View.
We won't be there.
We won't be there, but
we'll catch it later.
We will watch the video.
Thanks very much to engineer Dan Pham and to Reto who made the slides today. Yay!
Yay! Next week we're going to take a look at timer apps, probably. I think we haven't created the moderator page yet, but keep an eye out for the invite and have a look on moderator. You'll be able to nominate more apps for us to look at. In the meantime, we thank you very much for tuning in and watching. I'm Reto.
I'm Ian.
And we'll see you all next week.
Goodbye.